Today on the newscast, an Iranian terror cell convicted in a Belgian court. Will this be the wake-up call that Western Europe needs to drop its appeasement strategy towards the Iranian regime? Get my take coming up. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. We've got what I think is some very significant news out of Europe. It was reported yesterday, Wednesday, March 31st, that the European Union is preparing sanctions against Iranian regime officials. Now, the sanctions won't go into effect and be announced officially until next week. We still don't know which specific officials will be targeted by them, but they are reportedly coming. And folks, I have to give Europe some credit here. I've been a very tough critic of European nations for their appeasement strategy towards the Iranian regime over the years, including desperately clinging to that disastrous Iran nuclear deal and trying to keep it alive. But these sanctions, hey, it is a step forward in my view. Now, the European Union is saying the sanctions are due to Iran's human rights violations, in particular stemming from some very nasty events in late 2019 that unfolded inside Iran. There were demonstrations against the tyrannical Iranian regime, and under the orders of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian regime's goons in the streets cracked skulls of protesters, of Iranian citizens, and killed at least 1,500 Iranian demonstrators. Now, this is par for the course in Iran in terms of its response to demonstrations. Number one, think back to 2009, the Green Revolution, 1 million Iranians in the streets, and brutally met with a brutal crackdown from the regime. But kudos here to Europe. I have to give credit where it's due to call the Iranian regime out here and hold their feet to the fire a bit over these horrific human rights abuses that are conducted by the Iranian regime on a daily basis. Now, part of these sanctions entail, it restricts, freedom of movement for these officials who will be sanctioned. Again, they're not sanctioning the nation of Iran. They're sanctioning specific individuals who operate in the Iranian regime and are involved in that terror and human rights smashing apparatus. So their freedom of movement will be restricted when it comes to traveling to Europe. Also, any assets they have in Europe will be frozen. Hey, again, folks, it is a start, and my prayer is that Western Europe in particular, the European Union, is getting the wake-up call it needs to the extent, or of the extent, of the Iranian threat. I will give you a great example, which should have been a major wake-up call for European nations. Just last month, a Belgian court, February 2021, or now 2 months ago, today is April 1st, convicted an Iranian terror cell, a 3-person Iranian terror cell. Now, 2 of the people in this trio, they were a couple with Belgian-Iranian dual citizenship, but the 3rd person is really interesting, folks, an Iranian diplomat based in Vienna who apparently masterminded this terror plot. His name is Asadollah Assadi, again, convicted last month in a Belgian court, and here's the crux of it, the plot. Back in 2018, the 3 of them plotted to attack and set off explosives, an explosive device, at a rally near Paris, France, a rally of Iranian dissidents, exiles who are based in Europe now. They were gathering outside of Paris, a large gathering, probably thousands of people there, and this trio of Iranians, led by an Iranian government official, key point there, folks, again, an Iranian diplomat, they planned to attack this rally of anti-Iranian regime activists. Now, the couple, the Belgian-Iranian couple I mentioned, they were traveling through Belgium when they were stopped by authorities with explosive substances in their car. Again, this was 2018. A day later, this Iranian diplomat in Vienna was also arrested. He again was the mastermind. Took a few years for this trial to unfold, but it unfolded and the conviction took place last month in a Belgian court. All 3 convicted. Hey, you can't say that the Iranian regime knew nothing about this, folks. Number one, this was a top Iranian diplomat in Vienna involved, masterminding the whole thing. And number two, There is a long track record throughout the 1980s and the 1990s of Iran targeting dissidents on European soil. Many times, people who oppose, Iranians who oppose the regime, they flee, they get out of Iran, and they resettle in Europe or the United States or Canada. Well, Iran very boldly, the regime in the 1980s and 90s, was behind several assassinations on European soil. And what about remarks from the U.S. State Department's top counterterrorism coordinator, Nathan Sales, back in September 2020? Now, Sales is no longer at the State Department. He worked under the Trump administration, but he gave a very revealing speech in September in which he said that the Iranian regime is moving weapons and ammonium nitrate through European nations. Now, ammonium nitrate should ring a bell for you. It's the substance that has been used in several deadly terrorist attacks over the years. Think of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing right here in the United States, and also that massive explosion in the port of Beirut in August 2020, the mushroom cloud over the Lebanese capital caused by a massive stockpile of ammonium nitrate that went up in flames there in Beirut. Nathan Sales, very interesting remarks. I want to read them to you directly. I'll just go right to my phone here. I want to quote him correctly because it is very important. Sales said in September 2020, again, the State Department's top counterterrorism coordinator then, "I can reveal," said Sales, that Hezbollah weapons caches have been moved through Belgium to France, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Switzerland. I can also reveal that significant ammonium nitrate caches have been discovered or destroyed in France, Greece, and Italy. We have reason to believe that this activity is still underway. As of 2018, ammonium nitrate caches were still suspected within Europe, possibly in Greece, Italy, and Spain. He added, key point here, why would Hezbollah stockpile ammonium nitrate on European soil? Sales said the answer is clear. It can conduct major terror attacks whenever its masters in Tehran deem it necessary. So to me, a very credible source outlining how Hezbollah, Iran's top proxy, an extension of the Iranian regime, is very much active on European soil, in particular in Western Europe. Again, hello European Union, major wake-up call for you. Combine the Paris plot, the convictions last month, these statements by Nathan Sales, and folks, I think we have a problem. And the United States is not immune to these Iranian terror plots. We reported here in the newscast last month that U.S. intelligence officials reportedly picked up chatter from members of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps earlier this year discussing attacks on U.S. soil against the U.S. Army base Fort McNair in Washington, D.C., and also plans to target a top U.S. general who is stationed there. Very serious, to say the least, folks. And this planned attack by the Iranians would have been, in response, a revenge attack for the aforementioned Qasem Soleimani and his death. They are still looking to retaliate for it. They're still looking to retaliate for the death of their top nuclear mastermind, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, back in November 2020, which they blame on Israel. So Iranian cells are active, they are probing, and they are up to no good. Not the Iranian people. Key point there, the very Iranian people we discussed earlier in this newscast, folks, 1,500 of them killed by this wicked regime. It's not the Iranian people, who have a proud culture and history, and many of whom want to be rid of this tyrannical regime. It is the regime. Key point there. We are talking here on the Watchman Newscast when we address Iran and terror, specifically Iranian government officials and the regime, which has its boot on the necks of the Iranian people. It's the regime we are discussing. They are a major problem. Hopefully, Europe is getting the memo and starting to do something about it. I have my doubts because not only the U.S. but Europe seem very eager, practically tripping over themselves to re-enter that Iran nuclear deal. But the sanctions are a start, folks. I will take it in the short term and pray for a tougher stand from the West against this regime that threatens not only the Middle East. Pretty clear with the information we shared for you today, right? This is not just a threat for Israel, not just a threat for Saudi Arabia or the broader Middle East. Iran's tentacles stretch throughout the world, and that's a fact. We laid it out for you today. You don't get to have one of your government officials convicted in a terror plot in Belgium for nothing. Hey, before we go, a quick mention. The sponsor of today's video is our good friends at Artza, the unique subscription box bringing you Israeli-made products straight from the Holy Land. Great stuff, folks. Go to www.artzabox.com. Use the discount code WATCHMAN18 to get an 18% discount off your Artza box subscription. Perfect gift for this time of year in particular. This month's box is from Jerusalem, God's city. Very important, obviously, during Easter time. And if you've never been to Israel, or you haven't had a chance to get back, this box is perfect for you. Check it out, artzabox.com. Hey, thanks for joining us today here on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.